So what do we mean by successful reading? What kind of reader are you? Just because a set novel looks difficult, it doesn't mean that you won't be able to understand it or that it's boring. You may even enjoy it. The most important thing you bring to any text is your own experience of the world, and this includes your own values and your own ideas. Doris Lessing in the preface to The Golden Notebook challenges you as a reader directly. Why don't you read what I have written and make up your own mind about what you think, testing it against your own life, your own experience? There are no set ways to approach a text. You could read the novel through first quickly, getting the gist, and then follow this up by a more detailed chapter-by-chapter approach, or vice versa. That's entirely up to you, but by far the most important thing to develop is the knowledge and understanding of the whole text. You need to get inside the writer's head, and don't ever rely on a film or a play or the teacher's version of the text. Remember, you really need to read the whole novel several times to understand it properly. Angela Carter once wrote, "Reading is just as creative an activity as writing, and most intellectual development depends on new readings of old texts." Everyone brings different understandings of the world to what they read. These are the key areas to make jottings on your chosen text. Writer's purpose, genre, narrative structure, characters as representations or constructs, and language used to convey the meaning in the text. For each of these terms, we are going to discuss first some definitions and then ask you to work on some examples which you could apply to any set text. Then we'll suggest how you might use details of extracts from a particular text. In Wise Children, a novel by Angela Carter, she depicts a day in the life of twins, Dora and Nora Chance. It's their 75th birthday, Shakespeare's birthday, and they go from their ordinary home to the mansion of their natural but neglectful father, Melchior. Melchior's twin Peregrine presents the girls with newborn twins to raise. Far-fetched? Delightfully. Too many coincidences? Never. And realistic? Well. Complicated as a Shakespearean comedy? Of course. Now listen to the part of the account by Dora, who narrates the events of Melchior's 100th birthday party. He had been a famous Shakespearean actor of old school, but is now a little doddery. He also had 3 wives. Firstly, there's Wiltshire, who lives with Nora and Dora. Next, there's Daisy, known affectionately as Daisy Duck. And finally, his current wife, Margarine. Daisy is now with her husband number 3, her gigolo, or toy boy. The gigolo once played Puck in the disastrous film version of A Midsummer Night's Dream in Hollywood. Let's listen to an extract. Okay, Siobhan, take it away.
Poor old Perry was left right out in the cold during the ensuing emotional reconciliation. And I drew away, a little sunk in my own thoughts as follows. How a mother is always a mother, since a mother is a biological fact, whilst a father is a movable feast. But Melchior, head buried in his hands, looked the picture of misery. And Margarine beat the air with her hands, at a loss to what to do to cheer him up. Daisy and Nora had got their heads together. Then Daisy nudged her gigolo back to life. He looked as if he'd gone off into a trance temporarily. There was some discussion with the lutes, and they all struck up together as such a voice. The voice of an angel soared up and tickled the chandelier. A boy soprano. Such purity, such vigour. A voice I'd heard before in Hollywood, but this time it was not raised to warn us against spotted snakes. "Oh," he sang, "my beloved father." No gigolo accompanied Daisy, but he who'd once stood best man to her and Melchior. Bewigged, befuddled, still his vocal cords could melt a heart of stone. She'd met him again when he presented her with her lifetime contribution on the cinema, Academy Award. He was filthy rich and gaga, and when she told him to, he sang. "My very best marriage," she said, "from Daisy Duck to Daisy Puck." "I love thee, yes, I love thee." Nora signed me with her eyes. It was time for me and she to go public about our paternity. Our skirts had ridden up over our crotches. We pulled them down, we patted our hair, our heels went click, click, click on the carpet. That sexy sound. But we looked like wizened children got up in our mum's clothes for a dare, and our hearts were brimming over.
Thanks, Siobhan. That really made the text come to life, especially the singing bit in the middle. Okay, now back to the business. Back to our 5 points. Firstly, make sure you can jot down 3 key areas that seem to convey what you think the author's reasons for writing the novel are. Always relate these to quotations from the text. Your jotting for this episode might look something like this. Importance of knowing who your father is. Importance, perhaps superiority, of a biological mother. Importance of music and its effects. The world of shows and show business. Children and parents. Honesty and closeness in relationships. Youth and age. The real and the imaginary. Now try to decide for yourself which of these you would choose as your writer's main purpose. There is no right answer. Now it's up to you to argue your case originally and convincingly. Always use relevant evidence to support your views from the text. Genre. Genre is the term used to describe the kind or the type of novel that you're reading. Each genre normally carries certain conventions, rather like a recipe. So ask yourself whether the extract suggests the novel may be a thriller, a romance, a science fiction text, a myth, a fairy tale, a fable, a fantasy, a dystopia, a utopia, or a mixture of the different genres. Why is it important to analyse the genre? Because then you can look at the form, structure and style of the novel that you're studying. Then try to work out how it conforms to or differs from other texts or recipes. For instance, say a myth is like a rich fruit cake, whilst a fairy tale is more like a sponge cake. The ingredients in the different cakes may well be almost the same, but used in different proportions and cooked in very different ways. You need to be able to detect the special flavours of the text you are studying. Which of the following genres do you think comes closest to typifying this passage?
No gigolo accompanied Daisy, but he who'd once stood best man to her in Melchior. Bewigged, befuddled, still his vocal cords could melt a heart of stone. She'd met him again when he presented her with her lifetime contribution on the cinema, Academy Award. He was filthy rich and gaga, and when she told him to, he sang.
So here you can see how Carter has transformed Daisy's senile gigolo into an angel with a divine singing voice, but is still poking gentle fun at how incongruous this seems with his physical presence. So, what genre do we have here? A detective story? Science fiction? A fairy tale? A romance? Magic realism? Or social satire? Magic realism is a genre which draws heavily on the mythical romance and the fairy tale terror. It combines with conventional and contemporary ordinariness. There are often implausible coincidences in the structure or plot, the magic of the impossible happens, and the extraordinary struggles are overcome or transformed. Social satire. Social satire tends to poke fun at different sections of society and the power relations between them. Satire itself is a literary convention. This is where the weaknesses or vanities of characters are exposed through critical humour. This can sometimes be dark and cutting. Try and find a reason from your text for each genre you choose. When you read the whole text, you may discover it has aspects of 3 or 4 of these. However, Wise Children particularly has elements of all of the following: fairy tale, romance, magic realism, and social satire. Narrative structure. At surface level, this is the plot, the chain of events, the bare bones of the novel. However, you'll need to look more deeply into ways in which the novel is organised, searching out its recurring patterns, motifs, and symbolic meanings. A series of simple questions may help you to tackle and understand the meaning the author is trying to convey. Who is narrating the story? An all-knowing but more remote third person, or a detached narrator who may offer comment and interpretation as the events unfold, or a first-person narrator through whose biases the events of the novel may be filtered. Plural narrators, representing several shifting voices so the reader can see the narrative from different perspectives, as in Enduring Love by Ian McEwan. Ask yourself, what is the register or tone of the narrative voice? Does the narrative voice change? In the extract from Wise Children, the writer uses Dora to narrate the text in a humorous, self-mocking, knowing and chatty first-person register. Okay, so next, how is the narrative structured? Chronologically or not? If not, what devices does the author use to link the different parts of the text? For example, flashbacks or streams of consciousness. As I know you've guessed from the extract, you can find both these narrative devices.
My very best marriage, she said. From Daisy Duck to Daisy Puck.
Here, Daisy, Melchior's second wife, is reflecting on her time with Melchior in a stream of consciousness. Dora, the narrator, is playing with her memories of Daisy in the film version of Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. The narrative is structured chronologically, but uses frequent looping back into the past as a major device. This is particularly evident in the central 3 chapters. You also need to recognise that the novel has 5 chapters. Do these perhaps suggest the 5-act dramatic convention of a Shakespeare play? It would be useful for you to summarise these briefly, so you are clear about what happens in each chapter. What features of the setting seem to be important? Are they urban or rural, domestic or work environments, local, familiar or global or imagined fictive worlds? In the case of this novel, there are contrasts between the right and supposed wrong side of the tracks, or between North and South London. Also, between the so-called legitimate traditional Shakespearean theatre and the music hall world of the former chorus girls, Dora and Nora. Notice the opposites here, sometimes called binary oppositions in the text. The use of such opposition tends to foreground or point up key tensions in the text. For example, there are frequent references to decline of older forms of entertainment in the theatre and music hall. This is opposed to the growth of film, TV, game show, and the more commercial aspects of advertising. What are the most obvious recurring symbols or images? How are these used as clues or codes to show the deeper meanings in the text? Too many to mention. But there are clues in the contrasting passages. The wise or wizened children presented by Carter through the bawdy incongruity of Dora's description in the closeness between her and her twin sister.
Our skirts had ridden up over our crotches. We pulled them down, we patted our hair.
Did you know that very often in writing an examination response you can lose valuable marks by writing about characters as real people? This is when you do this without any mention of the author's purpose in constructing a character. it is very important to treat a character as a fictional construct or a creation of the author. So the guiding rule here is always to remember that a character has been created by the author to have a particular role, presence, voice, function and pattern of interaction with others in the text. Characters are the main ingredients in the recipe the author has used to construct or bake the text. Here you could develop your analysis of the way Carter has constructed Dora in the extract. This is something for you to do. Find some quotations for yourself that show the following aspects. This is where you need to use your detective skills, so you can analyse the linguistic devices and techniques a writer uses in detail. It is also important to be able to use brief and relevant quotations to illustrate the points you are making. The key thing to look out for is the author's use of images. These act as signposts to a deeper, more symbolic layering of the text. Words, particularly in combination, carry enormous suggestive possibilities and a dynamic. The way words are used also affect the sound or music of the text and the mood the author is trying to convey. So now let's see what knowledge and understanding you already have and can apply to any novel.